Hi, my name is Emily. Welcome to my garden. It's the place where dreams are cultivated. I have a great show planned for you today. It's getting pretty cold. Time to start thinking about stacking up that wood. See you in a minute. I'm back. I'm with Steve Zumalt, who is a certified arborist. Thanks for coming in today, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
What's the name of your company?
Zumalt Tree Experts,
And you are located out of?
North Attleboro.
North Attleboro. Okay. As you can see, it's raining today, but we improvised a little bit because I know I won't melt. Are you going to melt?
I'm not going to melt.
So I thought this time of year would be a wonderful time to do a show on wood. I keep that oil off as long as I possibly can. Seasoned wood, the drying out process. That has to do with
The water content.
the water content, not
Right.
so much the sap.
Sap is more of the food. The water comes up and brings food back down.
It's a mixture.
Right.
It's a mixture.
Because like in a maple, you get maple syrup.
I know in my business, I do a lot of decorating, and I was always taught after 3 hard frost, the sap would stop running, and then it would be safe for me to cut my greens and start to work them for winter pieces.
Okay.
So I was very curious about the fact that the sap might have something to do with the seasoned wood in itself. It makes sense.
Most guys are seasoning the wood somewhere around 6 to 8 months. I truly believe a year, year and a half is actually the best. If you have a chance, buy your wood a year early. Then you're guaranteed that you know the wood is dry.
You can see I've already started stacking.
Probably some really good demonstrations here. If you take 2 pieces of wood supposedly seasoned and you hit it together, it has that hollow sound, a real snap to it. It's probably dry enough to burn. If you pick it up and you hit it together and it clunks, you don't want to be burning that. Different woods take different times to season. Better woods around here are your oaks, hickory, walnut, and now you're getting into some woods that are better used elsewhere. But a lot of times the pieces of wood come through the companies. It's not good for anything else. It comes through as firewood. You need to stack it, cover it, and keep it covered. You want an airflow through it, but you need the top covered so the water can't go through it. You're trying to dry out the moisture out of the wood, and the better you can do that, the better burning you have. The more BTUs you're going to have for your dollar.
A BTU, short for British Thermal Unit, is a basic measure of thermal heat. 1 BTU is the amount of energy needed to heat 1 pound of water 1 degree.
Where your BTUs come in is the difference in BTUs to the softer hardwoods to the harder hardwoods. Some of your maples are softer woods, your ashes are softer woods. They take less time to dry than the oak and the harder woods.
And oftentimes when you go to buy wood, you're getting a mixed bag.
Yes.
Unless you really are specific and you know where you're dealing, you're going to probably get a mixture of woods.
You should be getting maple, some ash, and oak. That's our common woods around here for firewood.
And that's a question to ask when you go to buy.
Yeah.
I have a wood stove. I don't have a fireplace or an insert. It's a Vermont casting with a 15-inch opening, which sometimes plays havoc for me because the wood is cut in different lengths.
Right. If you have a stove that only takes 12-inch wood, and there are stoves that take 12-inch wood, you can tell them what size you need. Now, the smaller the piece of wood, probably you're going to pay more for the cord because now you're involved in a situation where
Handling.
it's more work.
Right.
A cord of wood in Massachusetts is not sold as a cord of wood. It's supposed to be sold by the cubic foot. So when you buy a cord of wood, it has to measure out at 128 cubic feet, which is 4 by 4 by 8.
4 by 4 by 8.
4 foot wide, 4 foot tall, 8 foot long. In the state of Massachusetts, you're allowed 10% shrinkage. That's a rule of thumb. If the guy shows up with his truck, there should be 166 to about 170 cubic feet of wood on the truck, and that's thrown. When you stack it, it should measure out at 4 by 4 by 8 with a 10% allowance for shrinkage in air.
And of course, you'll never know that unless you restack it that way.
Yes.
And that's your job.
Right. You can pay the guy to do it, but that's what the Massachusetts law says. You're supposed to be paying by the cubic foot. That way there's no discrepancy in how much wood you actually get. It used to be the measure of bark and wood in the town of Norton. So people should be aware of when you buy your wood, know how many cubic feet, whether it's thrown or stacked. That's very important.
I'm the best scavenger you've ever seen. I mean, I've been known to cut pieces of fence for kindling. Here's an idea for you. How about making some paper logs? Need kindling, can recycle your newspapers. It's a win-win. Great little activity for the kids too. This is all you have to do. Take 8 pages of newspaper and lay unfolded on a table lengthwise. Lay your broomstick or your log at the top of the paper. Tightly roll the newspaper around the broomstick. Overlap another 8 pages and continue rolling until you have a good-sized log. Grab some twine and tie. Soak overnight in water, and the water will break down the paper's fibers and reduce the amount of fly ash when the logs are burned. Take the logs out of the water and bang them on the ground to pack the paper. Remove the broomstick and dry thoroughly. We didn't touch lichens.
I can touch lichens right here.
You can. And that's just a fungus. Doesn't hurt the tree.
It's a symbiotic plant. It neither hurts nor helps its host.
I like it. I call it woodland coral. And you can do actually some decorating with it.
It doesn't bother anything. If it's on your roof, it's unsightly. But if it's on the trees, it belongs there. It belongs on the rocks. It belongs on wood. It's not pretty on your house.
I like it.
On your roof, everybody says, what's wrong with my roof? But don't worry about it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
I have a diseased oak in front of the house.
Yes.
Any given year, there seems to be some disease or epidemic that is worse than another. What's going on now?
Because it's a drought season, we're having gypsy moth problems and the winter moth. The winter moth attacks the tree before you see your leaves. It's actually going into the bud, eating leaf before it comes out, and then when it comes out, it's still eating. The gypsy moth coming in behind it. 2 to 3 years is enough to kill a tree. It can't survive usually over 3 years of defoliation. And if you ever notice when your tree first comes out, you have this nice big leaf, and then all of a sudden something will eat it. The next set of leaves come out and they're smaller. And it's because it doesn't have the food to throw the big leaf again.
Weakens it, and of course
Right.
then it's susceptible to more and more disease, just like plants.
If you're really worried about your trees, contact somebody today. With all the technology we have, if you have a diseased tree, sometimes it's not a matter of spraying the tree. We'll actually come in and inject the tree. Just like we would do people. They have needles that we stick through the bark and inject into the tree. The American elm is subject to Dutch elm disease, and once it gets it, it's almost impossible to stop it. American chestnut had a blight, and you do not see it.
Beautiful tree.
And it used to be a huge tree, and today, if you find one that's 20 foot tall, you found a rare find.
Trees are your winter landscape. A lot of people will choose their tree not by the leaf structure or by perhaps they might flower, but by the bark.
Yes.
My next question.
Good.
I heart scratched into a tree.
Okay.
What does that do to the tree?
Yeah, it tells the tree you don't like it. No. It actually opens the tree up to infections, and what you're doing is actually you're damaging the cambium layer. The cambium layer is the living part of the tree under the bark, and that little layer is what makes the tree grow.
So don't do that. Send her a card.
Right. In fact, just plant her a tree and say it's her tree.
Even better.
If you take a nail and you put it in a tree at this height, where do you think that's going to be in 100 years from today? The tree grows actually like a pyramid. It grows at the top and adds growth to the side. It doesn't grow from the roots up. So this nail will always be at this height.
Now we have stormy weather today, and I know in the business that I've been in for 30 years that after a storm there's limbs down everywhere.
A professional should be doing major work. Minor work, we encourage you to do your own work. There's no reason to pay me to come out and do work for you if you can do it yourself. But when it comes to something that could be dangerous, stay with what you do for a living. I don't do electricity, I don't do plumbing. But
He does trees.
I do trees.
I had a really great informative session with you. Thank you so
very
much.
much.
See you in a second. I hope you all learned something. I know I did. We part until we meet again. See you next time here in Emily's Garden. In your opinion, if I were to heat all winter, how many cords would I need?
In the shack?
In the shack,
In the cabin?
in the little cabin.
If you take 2 pieces of wood supposedly seasoned and you hit it together, it has that hollow sound,
And the bark falls off.
the bark falls off.
Ready? Okay.